Transforming research results into solutions for society is indeed key to ensure our health, to boost the green and digital transitions, and support Europe's recovery. As my esteemed colleague Peter Grohl just said at the opening of the week, knowledge valorization is not an abstract term, but it describes very well the transformation of knowledge and ideas into innovative solutions for the benefit of citizens. So the focus of this webinar is the mobility of people, and in particular, intersectoral mobility, which is a tool for knowledge valorization. And in fact, intersectoral mobility plays a key role in knowledge valorization, as it facilitates the flow of knowledge and talents into the companies and public sector, and it enhances the skills and entrepreneurial mindset of researchers and students. At EU level, there are a range of instruments that we have been implementing to strengthen intersectoral mobility and cooperation. And these are the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, the Erasmus Plus program, the European SME Innovation Associate, and the master's programs of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. So building upon this success, the EU is working on new complementary actions to further increase the knowledge exchange, for instance, focusing on companies' research and innovation needs. At the same time, we need to capitalize on best practice examples on knowledge valorization, which are coming from the EU countries. And in this session, we will learn more about how policy instruments and decisions can make intersectoral mobility flourish, thanks to the two concrete examples. The first example is coming from France, and we have our speakers with us today, Olivier Mallet and Francine Marcus from the French Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation, who will present France's legislative approaches to facilitate intersectoral cooperation. And we have the second presentation from Lithuania, where Professor Andrius Bilkauskas, who is Dean of the Kaunas University of Technology, will focus on how to promote bidirectional mobility of knowledge between engineering industries and academia. And now, without further ado, I'm glad to give the floor to Olivier and Francine for the first presentation. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. We are glad to have this presentation today, and with no further notice, I will give the floor to Francine, who is going to do the majority of the presentation today.
Thank you, Antonetta. Thank you, Olivier. Good morning, everyone. Next. We propose to talk about researchers' mobility in France to you. Can you change it? Yes, next, please. The development of the modern technology sector depends above all the quality of public research and the capacity of research organizations to transfer the result of their work to company. From this point of view, even if French research organizations have a strong potential in terms of innovation, their developments were limited by the rules which governed researchers and their organization, and by insufficient cooperation between public research and the economic world. The intervention of the public authorities was therefore necessary, both to remove the legal obstacles linked to the statute of public researcher, which made it difficult to create businesses and to stimulate individual initiative. This is a reflection that we want to share with you today. Next. France suffered from the gap between the quality of its scientific and technical research and the weakness of the transfer of knowledge from the world of research to the world of business. While research organizations and university had a lot of patents, few were exploited. Maybe the technology were too far from a market to interest companies. In addition, we noted that the lack of cooperation and promotion was linked to the difficulty of establishing effective partnership between research organizations and companies. And at the human level, that's the weakness of relations between researchers and businesses. However, it was not for lack of interest from researcher or company, but because of legislation in force. Indeed, the law imposed an obligation of professional exclusivity of public researchers, who are also not entitled to receive any other remuneration. So it prevented them from participating in the creation of businesses. If they did not strictly respect this obligation, they created a conflict of interest punishable by criminal law. Moreover, if a public researcher wanted to create a company, he had to be placed on availability or professional leave. I don't know if it's the right term, the good translation. It just means that the researcher had to stop all activity in his laboratory. He no longer benefited from his remuneration, his right to career advancement, and his pension rights. So for them, it was a totally dissuasive risk-taking. Finally, the rule relating to the accumulation of activities only planned occasional expertise, and therefore did not allow regular scientific advice to a company. Next, please. The first law, the first law called the ALEG Law, name of the Ministry of Research who carried this law, created the following three schemes, which still exist. Thus, public researchers were allowed to create a business, to carry out scientific consultation, and to participate in the management body of a commercial company. During a scientific consultation, the researcher becomes the scientific advisor of the company, which promoted his work. So these skills were originally intended for researchers, professors, and engineering and technical staff working for more than 1 year in a public establishment or a public company with a research mission. And this personnel have for mission the development of knowledge, its transfer and its application in companies, and dissemination and promotion of the results of public research. Next. So the objective of the first law were, on the one hand, to remove the constraints imposed by the regulation, and the other hand, to stimulate the collaboration of public researchers with companies by creating new rules. This by ensuring the respect of ethics by public researchers and the protection of the right and interest of their public establishment. Sorry. A point of clarification, the respect of ethics was controlled by an independent commission external to the establishment. As the first reports were not fully satisfactory, it was necessary to legally organize the convergence of interests between the researcher, his employer, and the company, as soon as the company valued the researcher's work. So changes were necessary, and they made in 2 stages by 2 laws. Next. The main objective of the second law, which called Pact Law, were to promote even more entrepreneurship and innovation, to simplify procedure and make establishment accountable, because it should be up to them and not to an external entity to authorize a researcher to carry out mobility. To facilitate the transition from one scheme to another, and to secure the professional career of public researchers, to reassure researchers about their future. The main objective of the third law, which called LPR, or in France, Loi de Programmation Recherche, were to expand the category of beneficiary of the schemes and to allow researchers to promote the work of other researchers and thus broaden the possibility of promoting public research, promoting even more results. Next. So we have chosen to present the 7 following improvements to you as best practices or a beginning of good practices. Firstly, the simplification of the authorization procedure. The authorization is no longer subject to a prior opinion from an ethics committee. The employee establishment is responsible for authorizing, monitoring, and, if necessary, sanctioning. Secondly, will had to be easier. For example, to set up a startup, the employee can ask to work part-time for the organization. He is no longer obliged to leave the public service. The law increases the time that the researcher can devote to consultancy. Thirdly, an authorization to switch from one scheme to another, with that to reintegrate the establishment before. Before that, at the end of an authorization, the researcher had to return to his establishment, stop all activity or sever all financialities with the company, then reapply for a new authorization. And now, researchers are allowed to participate in the management of a company, valuing the results of public researchers, not only in its initial phase of creation, but also subsequently as a manager or partner, and they are allowed at the end of a scientific consultation to take over the company valuing its work. Fourth, the researcher is authorized to keep the capital held in the company at the end of authorization. Before the reform, researchers had only 1 year to sell their shares. The reform allows them to keep its capital, provided that they notify the establishment employer of the amount they have. Next. Fifthly, researchers retain their right to promotion or pass professional examination. Indeed, the researcher who no longer works in his establishment, who obtained a professional leave for business creation, may benefit from a promotion or successful in competition without having to return to his establishment before. Sixth, researchers are allowed to own more capital in the company than before. The percentage of capital increases from 20 to 32%. And as the last one, the 2 laws also made it possible to hidden the target of beneficiaries. First, to the manager of public establishment can request, like researchers, to participate in the management body of a company. And then, with the 3rd law, to all public personnel carry out a public research activity, even if the results were not theirs. For example, even if they are not the inventor of the valued invention. And it's very important. Next. Olivier, do you want to present the conclusion?
Yes, thank you very much, Francine. So this is our last slide. Maybe just a few things to wrap up what just said. The idea of what we presented today is that we had a kind of an itinerary evaluation of the different regulations we had in France. So we've tried at every stage to reflect on the effect of the law and to change needed based on feedbacks from users, especially researchers and academia in general, as well as companies. So maybe that's the main thing we want to share with you. And if we if we can share three best practices, we think that were put in places during this time. So the first thing is if you want to encourage the academia in general to think about their links with the private sector and to encourage technology transfer, you need not only to target the inventors, but also all the people around them, because sometimes the inventor does not want to go to the private sector to start a company, but some of their students, someone around is happy to do so and to pick up the work that has been done and to go one step further. So I think that's one thing, and that's maybe to make a link with what is done at the EU level. That's what the European Commission is doing with the transition activity of the EIC, so that's something to keep in mind. Also, that's something maybe sometimes difficult, especially if you work in a ministry or in administration, is to be able to reflect and to change based on evidence and feedbacks you get. So that's something really important for us to share with you. And also, last but not least, all these regulations, and they provide some kind of a safety net for researchers and for people working in the academia, so they can take a risk, but measurable risk for them, because they can go back to the work in the academia. If the company fails, if the company is successful, but they realize that they really wanted to start a company and go back to what they really love, which is doing research in the lab. And so I think a complete an ongoing dialogue between the employers and the employee is really important to strengthen this scheme, and to make researchers willing to do this step further towards technology transfer. And that's all on our side, and I think we are just right on time.
Thank you very much, and a comprehensive presentation. Indeed, this has been very interesting to hear how legislative approaches can be utilized in order to address main obstacles to knowledge valorization. There are plenty of things, and I'm sure there will be questions from the audience to the presentation you've made, but I think just I would like to highlight a couple of points which relate to the need of ongoing dialogue and cooperation amongst various sectors and actors who are involved in these schemes, but also the importance of iterations, this iterative approach to further improving the legislative framework and approaches when tackling the obstacles to knowledge valorization, as this gives an opportunity to take into account the evidence, the feedback from the various actors involved. But we'll have more time to discuss these issues further on. Let us now move to the next presentation, and I would like to give the floor to Andrius. Andrius, over to you.
Thank you, Antonetta. Thank you. And I'm starting my presentation. Dear colleagues, dear participants, dear organizers, thank you for the opportunity to speak and share my experience and insights. I'm Andrius Vilkauskas, serving today as a dean at the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering and Design at Kaunas University of Technology, and also I'm vice president of Lithuanian Engineering Industries Association, IMPRA. Today we will speak about how to promote bidirectional mobility of knowledge between engineering industries and academia. Next slide, please. Showing that all initiatives developing innovation ecosystems are important and can be absorbed. I will share how innovation ecosystem developing at our university. Will give few ad hoc examples and example of coalition of academia and engineering industry. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Couple words about me. Next slide, please. In my career, I got opportunity to get really wide background, but mainly myself, I sticked on engineering because I really was in love with engineering. And curiosity for defense, space, and energy technologies were my drivers in professional career. And all around, I was always involved or with defense technologies or a little bit with space and academia as well, and in energy sectors. Next slide, please. And now, just a couple words about Lithuania, about my lovely country. Next slide, please. About which I can talk a lot, but maybe I will stick on with 3 facts today. So, Kaunas region, among 10 most cost-effective small European regions. It is Kaunas also Art Deco city, and what is important for next year, it will be Europe Capital of Culture. So please visit us next year. You will be very welcome. Next slide. It also is very important that 1/5 of Lithuanian economy is built in this region, and also this region also very young and academic region, because there is a lot of universities and students, and literally academia and industry lives together. Next slide, please. Let's talk about innovation technology transfer at Kaunas University of Technology. Next slide, please. And I would like to share our innovation ecosystem developing history started just after restoring of our independence. Learning process took a while, and we are still learning, but in cooperation with national and international partnerships, we have developed National Innovation Entrepreneurship Center, which we call Santaca Valley. And this unit fostering innovations at our university, region, and country. Just want to emphasize that universities' collaboration, knowledge exchange, intellectual property management, promoting entrepreneurship mindset, growing young businesses, and developing them is key areas of our activity. Next slide, please. To achieve them, we had to do it in steps. And one of the first steps that we have done, it was building our entrepreneurship development system or startup system or startup ecosystem. This ecosystem actually was built by example of Aalto University and cooperated with them. And since 2012, we already developed more than 100 startups. It was developed plenty of ideas, created job places. But what is important, at least from my point of view and from my perspectives, but we put mentors together. So it means we build media for knowledge exchange and mobility. And let's say when you're putting together about 1,000 academics and about a couple thousands of professionals from industry, we can build huge networks, and not to foster and help for students and young researchers, but also to start building their own networks. And of course, how to measure success of this system? We measure in a couple, let's say, simple things. Just by measuring by created job places and tax paid by the startup community, as an example. Next slide, please. And second step, what we did, actually chronologically, this was the first step. It is innovation fair. What was started actually with some students' developments and projects exhibition, and today we having mixed teams of students, young researchers and professors, attracting industry, business and investors in one big place. And this year we're going to have 21st events, so it means already about 20 years this, let's say, event is alive, and building community of future startups, entrepreneurs, and business developers and product developers. Next slide, please. Let's talk about knowledge mobility in practice, and I will present several examples. I cannot tell that they are best examples, but they are from my personal experience, so it's much more easy to talk for me. Next slide, please. I will give example from defense technology. in 2000, Lithuania had established small arms ammunition plant. Decision was made much earlier, and of course it was a reason for this one, because we had to start, let's say, our defense potential and to increase as much as possible. And of course, before, let's say, joining NATO, the situation was a little bit different. So we had to do a lot of things by ourselves. And what we did, actually, thank you, France, we have received technologies and equipment from France. We started greenfield investment in 2000. First products was made in 2002, and NATO qualification approval test was performed in 2005, just after 1 year after joining the NATO. So it means even if you do not have any experience on the field, I mean from national point of view, but if you just taking the right people, and for this period was, let's say, young students were taken just graduates from university as a majority of our specialists, and will put some practical knowledge to them, we will be able to join practice and theory in one place and will start delivering processes and products and services if it's needed, and in very short period, by help of, let's say, so-called knowledge transfer agents, but the students, we managed to start completely new fields in our, let's say, in our history and in our experience. Next slide, please. And another, let's say, case I'm calling Race to Space. Lithuania before never had experience in the space businesses, but managed to launch 2 CubeSats in their history for the first time, and it was done in a relatively short period. Next slide, please. And how it was achieved. And actually, when you're looking back through the history, it looks very simple. Just we needed a couple of innovators who rise the challenge, some business people who, let's say, found what is worth of to invest, and universities to accept the challenges. And 2 universities were accepted, like Kaunas University of Technology and Vilnius University, and we became, as, let's say, a space state. And what we have needed for this one, actually, ideas and capital. Capital is very important because for, let's say, to go ahead, we always need to put some, let's say, blood in the veins, and it helped a lot. And of course, the biggest success afterwards, it is new business area we have started, and one of the most successful examples today is nano-organics company, already today building, let's say, CubeSats for all around world players and dealing and having branches in UK, USA, and it's already global player. Next slide, please. And knowledge mobility is a key factor, but to build something bigger, we have to think about ecosystem co-evolution and academia and industry learning together. Next slide, please. And I will try to show this one by Lithuanian engineering industries example by numbers. Just as an example, in 2007, we had turnover about 2.5 billions. In 2018, it's almost already 4.5 billions. But what is the most important to show? That employee number almost remained the same. So what changed in ecosystem? What happened in ecosystem? This is actually the biggest question what we have to, let's say, to answer. And lots of time we were thinking. Next slide, please. We were thinking, but it is, let's say, okay, we have recovered after financial crisis and so on, but also we have to think about one very simple thing. In 2011, 12, Industry 4 approach and philosophy were introduced in, let's say, in the industry. And in Lithuania, non-academia, non-industry had, let's say, any experience about this one. So we had to learn together, and it was some kind of like convolution of ecosystem. When industry learned together with academia, universities developed studies, curriculum programs, and so on. And we have started delivering also different quality of our engineers, of our students, let's say, of future businessmen. And it means that efficiency was growing very, very fast. And this is also was part of results of this one, that with the same, let's say, employees number, we having double export and almost double turnover for companies. Next slide, please. And also this approach was introduced for investments into our region, in Kaunas region, and big players have appeared in this region. But I just will give some couple examples and figures. But since 2018, big players have joined the Kaunas region. Total investments about 350 million capex was made, and about 4,500 jobs places were created. It is big, let's say, challenge, and it was performed. But also what is important that knowledge transfer agents, how we call students, really were involved in this one, and all investors were visiting universities, and final decision was made after visiting universities to settle up in the Kaunas region. Please, next slide. So, what we have learned? Good question, actually. Next slide, please. And just we can tell very, very simply. What will happen, that anyway we need some fresh minds to do it. So it means that knowledge transfer agents always has to be in place. That means the students are very important. Very important also to build the media for knowledge exchange, like as an example, startups and mentoring of startups, one of the best, let's say, places for knowledge mobility between academia and industry. Also, if industry will decide to invest, we will share its experience, because we are also very interested about success of the investment. Also, we have to build entrepreneurial mindset, and for academia, we mean for professors and for students as well. And of course, triple helix collaboration, so-called universities, industry, and government cooperation. And how, let's say, we can co-create and promote the future. So let's build a playground. It means that incentives for our ecosystem actors to collaborate has to be in place. Mediator for alignment of interests is very important. Maybe, let's say, in the future, now, I mean, in our case, maybe it will be European Digital Innovation Hub, who knows, but the next step can be it. Also, we have to put capital to fuel up the ideas development, because money is important and capital is important. This capital is very important. Also, we still have to foster the entrepreneurial mindset, because sometimes we have all opportunities, we just have to go up. And of course, diversity for let's say, ideas development, and of course, metrics, just for co-evolution of ecosystem measuring. Because business has its metrics, academia has its metrics, but we have, let's say, to measure this potential and performance together. Thank you, and let's switch to the Q&A session. Thank you.
Many thanks, Andrius, for this indeed very interesting and also very comprehensive presentation with very concrete examples coming from Lithuania and from the university, Kaunas University, that you are leading. Just a couple of highlights and one particular focus on the importance attached on ecosystems, and indeed, once again, the importance of bringing together the various actors who are important for the knowledge transfer and ensuring close cooperation amongst researchers and representatives of business and academia. We already have a number of questions coming through Slido from our audience, and I would like to start with a question to all of you, which is just to look at the biggest challenges for intersectoral mobility from European perspective. Do you think that these are challenges comparable with the ones in other non-EU countries? We've just heard the examples from France and Lithuania. So this is a question to all panelists, but would like to start to give short views on this question. Andrius, would you like to continue with an answer to this question? What are the big challenges for intersectoral mobility in Europe?
Anyway, I will give just a couple examples. for mobility in Europe is also for knowledge mobility. It's also important diversity. So I will give an example. Today in engineering and technologies, I think women is 1/5, let's say, of all players in this field. So it means that also for knowledge mobility, and it's very important to have, let's say, as diverse teams as possible to create something new. So it means also that gender issue, it also can be some little case, let's say, for in engineering, let's say, field, as an example.
Thank you very much, Andrews. Olivier, from your perspective and France's experience, how do you see the biggest challenges in Europe? And perhaps you may consider also if they're compared to non-EU countries.
Yeah, I think one thing that is common to most EU countries, and maybe different from what we can see in the US, for example, is the way we deal with risk and risk taking, and how you see it, and how you encourage or not this risk taking, and how you deal with failure, and the way we all are able to take risk and to move from the natural path we were put in. So that's maybe one thing. I think it just and the second thing, at least from France's point of view, is that we've had for a very long time very different path between career in the public sector and career in the private sectors, with limited links between the two, or limited to a very small number of companies and or sectors. And I think what's important is to develop a common understanding of the issues, a common language, a common way of working on projects, and a common vision of what we all want to achieve together, what the private can bring and what the public sector can bring, and that's the way. So I think one word is porosity. I think that's a good word, is that we need to have these maybe tiny or more strong links, but it can be a training program. It can be exchange more language, and it can be companies being in campus. It can be anything, but I think we need to encourage this kind of micro mobility and ongoing and everyday mobility, and that's the way we can have a common language and common vision of issues to be tackled.
Many thanks, Olivier, for this very comprehensive reply. Indeed, mobility between the private and public sector is highly important. Francine, would you like to comment further on this question?
No, Olivier was totally clear, so, and I'm very okay with it, with him.
Yeah. All right. I think that the points that were made by both Olivier and Andrews are very important points, and I think that this is one of the major issues indeed, how to build entrepreneurial mindset, how to cope with the risk-taking and dealing with failure, and this is something which could be addressed, achieved by further promoting intersectoral mobility, moving from private to public and vice versa, and transferring knowledge and skills. I would like to continue now with some more questions that are coming from the audience, and I would like to ask Andrews for his views on what attracts the interest of researchers in intersectoral mobility. You already elaborated on the need of creating ecosystems, of continuous dialogue and close cooperation. Andrews, what do you think is important from that perspective for researchers?
Okay, I can tell that it's curiosity. It's very important, because anyway, researchers are curious people. So it's also interesting to know something new that is not, let's say, tried or done before. So it's, let's say, answering in, let's say, more fun way. And just talking more, let's say, seriously, I will tell that for intersectoral mobility is also very important metrics. I mean, how we measure the results, and especially how we measure results of our community, of our ecosystem. So it means if you will build, let's say, system measuring also not only, let's say, building and developing the knowledge as a result, but also innovation as a result. So it means that researchers will be interesting to try this, let's say, to put this knowledge into the ecosystem and to see how it, let's say, evolve and what will we have, let's say, in the, some next years and so on. So metrics also and KPIs is also important, but they have to be built not for universities or businesses separately, but for our ecosystem as the one, as the whole body. I hope it was clear.
Thank you, Andres. Yes, no, it's a very clear answer. And again, this brings us back to the importance of ecosystems and the need to work together across sectors and actors. I would like to go back to Olivier once again, and something which is based on the experience France has and the presentation that they've made. Question coming from the audience is IP owned by an university an issue in France when researchers want to set up a company? Olivier.
I will let Francine go with this one. Yeah.
Yes, we can repeat. Yes, I think yes, it can be important because if a researcher wants to create a company based on public research results, his employer must own or co-owner of this IP. So yes, I think it's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, I think that the just to complement what Francine just said, I think what we're trying to do is that we try to make it as smooth as possible, and that is why we have tried and we have put some effort on increasing the capacity of university and research organization to have the good skills and people dealing with these IP issues, and to make it as smooth as possible for researchers to focus on their main task, that is growing the scientific and technical and business of the company.
Yeah, this remains a highly important issue indeed. But let me continue with another question to you, Olivier and Francine. Students and high-skilled workers often prefer to enter member states following the national legislation. In your view, do we need to see the student researchers and the blue card directives be changed? How do you see this issue? And, you know, the issue of talents and mobility of talents was raised earlier and remains highly important. Mm-hmm. From your experience?
Yeah, I am not the most knowledgeable guy on this issue, but what can I say is that the more transparent and the more comparable the legislations are between EU countries, the more we can attract people from outside to join and to settle in one of these countries. I think what we are trying to do with the research European research area, and maybe we need to do that with innovation as well, because we need to have talent to come to one country and to be able to move to another country in Europe without having to go to too many hurdles and stuff. So I think it's important to just reflect on and learn from the trajectories of entrepreneurs and high-skilled people, and to learn how we can maybe improve the general scheme based on their feedback.
These are very important points that you are making, Olivier. But I would like now again to go back to Andrews and again talk about the skills, the talents, and what researchers actually get as the key added value for them. We certainly need entrepreneurial culture and the right skills for exploitation and commercialization of research. And you've already, Andrews, provided some very good examples. In the opening speech, we heard from Christina that talents, mobility, and access to talents remains one of the major obstacles. Do you have any other examples or any other thoughts on that, on how to promote the right skills and culture through intersectoral mobility?
Thank you, Antonetta, for question. I just would like to emphasize also one thing, that talents, actually it is a key factor for investors. If there is some, let's say, talents, I cannot tell what talents industry, but the place where talents are fostered and grown up. So it means in this region or in this place, investors will appear sooner or later, because today I think it's the most important factor is talents. Everything else you can purchase, you can buy it or so on, but talents is not so easy to let's say, to get it. So fostering of talents are very important. Also, if you're talking about entrepreneurial culture, we have to also to grow up with people, because culture is not changing in one day, not changing in 2 days. You need years and sometimes even decades for this one. So it means our curriculum and our education universities also has to not to change but to adapt to this requirement. And I'm happy for our university, at least for already, I think, 8 years, we have so-called entrepreneurial technology course for our students. And I think already 2 generations of students, they passed this one. And it means that already having students not knowing, let's say, engineering or business as, let's say, as a basic, but also change with some the right mindset. And startup ecosystem with playground for the students at universities is also very important. So it means that we also have to think about the risk capital possible for young researchers and for the students, just to let them play, and I mean play seriously. So this is, I think, some little challenge in our community, in academia community, because we're always very scared to take some risk. And this is possibility to grow them. So really, I think many different factors can help this one, but just keeping in mind that we have to change culture by education, and also we have to build the playground to give for them to get some experience and practice on the field.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Andres. If I may complement this issue a bit further, because indeed we have to build a culture, entrepreneurial mindset through education. You mentioned earlier a very important point related to diversity, and your presentation was actually focused on the engineering industry. Could you please share also further insights and views of how to best attract women, girls in STEM, in engineering subjects? A lot has been done over the past years. These are continuous efforts at European, national, regional level. But from your experience, where still the bottlenecks and what else needs to be done?
Okay, today at least what I see from just graduating students and how many diplomas are received by girls and boys, already see that there is quite big difference, let's say, in the numbers. And also, I think the biggest gap today in the, let's say, in the schools, I mean, in the higher education, in high schools, I mean, from this one, that STEAM or STEM is still not so popular, let's say, between the teenagers. And of course, boys is much more easy to attract, but girls may be very interested in some other things. So this is the key factor that I think we are still not solved, at least in our, let's say, in our region, in our case. It's still a big challenge for us to change it. So for me, for myself today, I don't have clear answer. Just one clear thing for me that we have to think and work on this STEAM schemes at schools for boys and girls.
Thank you very much, Andrius. I would like to check with Olivier or Francine if they would like also to consider this question from France's perspective, or anything that could be done by the public sector or through public-private cooperation.
Yeah, maybe one thing, and I think that was said by Christina earlier today. I think it's important to have role models as well. I think it's really important to show not only that you can build a successful business based on research, but also that you can be from maybe a poorer or less educated family and be a successful businessman or successful researcher, and if you're I don't know, a woman and you working in artificial intelligence or any other more mainly, I would say, or I don't know, dominated by male sectors, and yeah, I think I really believe in these role model capacity to change the way people see the opportunities for them and for the people around them.
Olivier, I can only agree with you. I mean, I see the same way the importance of role models, and indeed, Christina was inspirational and certainly a role model of a young entrepreneurial female in the technology sectors, and this is the best way actually to show opportunities to others and motivate them. I would like to ask one last question before we move to final statements. Do you think that researchers are worried that they lose their chances for academic career if they try, for example, to go for entrepreneurship, an entrepreneurial career? And what could be done to ease these moves? I don't know, Olivier, you may wish to continue. Yeah. Before we turn to Francine and Andrius. Yes, please.
Yeah, I think what we've tried to do in France is that we can with the schemes Francine presented, is that we're trying to have these researchers to pursue a kind of double career, so they can have both an academic career and be part of a company. At some point, you may need to choose if you want to be, because you only have 24 hours a day. So at some point, you just need to choose. But anyway, if you choose to go back to the academia, you can, and that's one thing. So in terms of possibility, that's the one thing. Maybe the other thing is that we are trying to do, and that's not always easy, and it depends on sectors, and it depends on universities or organizations, but we need to be better at taking into account innovation and business creation and participation in business cooperation in the evaluation of individual careers. And that's not always easy because researchers are mainly what they are paid for, and what we want them to do is to do research. So it's not always easy to take other activities into account, not only research, not only business creation, but also, I don't know, maybe vulgarization or talking with a larger audience so. But we are trying to do that, and we are trying to change the way the evaluation is done, so we can include this kind of activities as well.
Thank you very much, Olivier. Andrius, from your perspective, how do you see this? Do you think
I think it is a possibility, and also we already have some kind of like a system so-called sabbaticals. So it means we just can do the sabbaticals for, let's say, for innovation and entrepreneurship. Of course, we have to think about the time frame. It's up to 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, but not more, I guess. And you just will give possibility to the researcher to go into this business, try it, play it, maybe later to sell it or to change something, and later to come back into the same conditions what he got left, let's say, as an example. But it is, I think it's possible to develop this kind of scheme and to work on this one. Just, let's say, from first mind, what came to my mind at the moment.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrius. I think that as we are approaching the end of this session, I would like to, before finishing, ask you for some final statements. And already a lot of things were said about how to strengthen and further promote and encourage mobility, intersectoral mobility, knowledge valorization and transfer. But if you would like, or if you can make some highlights, the key issues for you that are related on how to improve intersectoral mobility in Europe. Which also means a cooperation between and across boundaries and countries. And I would like to invite Francine, if you'd like to give your thoughts on this final remarks.
Thank you, Antonita. Maybe I just want to say that it's useful to harmonize your practices to strengthen cooperation on mobility in Europe. As said Christiana and the beginning, it's important to build a bridge between research and company and to link them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Olivia, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think maybe one thing is that some people might say that valorization and technology transfer is a contact sport, and we need daily and really strong contact and exchanges between people from the academia, people from the private sector, and that's also the right way to improve knowledge valorization and knowledge transfer in Europe.
Thank you, Olivia. And Andrius, very, very final remarks from your side.
I think also we have to think about the mediator's role in this between academia and industry, because it's very important not only to transfer people physically, but also just to change, let's say, transfer knowledge of where and to put some, let's say, something new company and so on. Research itself, maybe he can remain in university as well, not a problem. So mediator and mediator's role is also important, and we have to think what is the best, let's say, could be a mediator.
Thank you very much, Andrius, and many thanks to all three of you for these very valuable reflections. Let me once again thank you for the very interesting and insightful presentations, and for the very lively exchange, answering all questions coming from the audience. Of course, I would like to very warmly also thank our audience and participants for their questions and active participation. So we can now conclude the first webinar of the Knowledge Valorization Week. That will restart tomorrow at 10 o'clock with the session Connecting the Dots, Intermediaries Facilitating Knowledge. Let me wish you all a very nice afternoon, and of course a very successful and further inspirational discussions and exchanges as part of the first EU Knowledge Valorization Week. Thank you very much.